Hello, 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 friends. Welcome back to Content Culture. It's your girl, Tomi.
And Nicole.
And here we are, your favorite weekly podcast, breaking down all things pop culture and our favorite reality TV binge watches. And of course, right now we're into The Bachelorette, and I'm loving it. But as we have started to get back in the swing of things now after a little bit of a hiatus, Nicole, how are you? What have you been up to?
I'm good. I this weekend I went to the Van Gogh immersive experience. I know you've been
Yeah,
to in
I saw
Charlotte.
that on stories. Did you enjoy it?
I loved it. It was so cool. Like the room that they do the projections and everything in was
Hmm.
awesome. Loved it. Yeah, I definitely am excited. They're doing another one here with Frida, and I'm debating if I'm gonna buy tickets to that or not.
Ooh, that might be fun. I feel like the reason why I
Yeah.
enjoyed it so much, it reminded me of going on like a field trip as a child to one of those like
Yes.
what's it called? Like observatories or stuff like whatever you're there and you're just like, wow, like looking up at the ceiling
I
and seeing all
know.
these things. And I think some people who are like haters of it, I don't know what they expect. Like obviously it's not the real paintings, of course, but like it still felt immersive enough to me. And I think if you go in there with like an open mind and just like let me try and relax and just enjoy what's in front of me, I think it's worth it to go at least once. You don't have to like keep going and paying money, but think it for once.
Right. Like I thought sitting down, they do a room that's like all projectors around you, so you see like video art moving around you, and it's cool. Like it's you don't get to see like Van Gogh's art. Like at least I don't get to see Van Gogh's art every day like in my life. So maybe you do. I don't know, listeners,
I
but
was about to say, listeners, share if you are
if you
working it like that.
do, share some money. But it was really cool. And then I don't know, did you do the VR experience with yours?
No, I don't think we had
Okay.
that.
Okay, so ours had like a walkthrough and then the sit down part and then like a coloring section. And then, yeah, I've got coloring sheets. I'll mail you one. And, and then a VR experience. So you put on like the VR goggles, and I swear I probably looked like a child, like you said, like a child at a field trip because I was just like looking backwards. I was like, oh, there's the sunflowers over there, and it's like, please pay attention to this painting. And I'm like, look, there's cows.
Oh my gosh. I
So
love it. That's
a
exactly how
bit
I would have been
embarrassing.
for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Who did you go
But
with?
how I took my parents and my brother. I made the whole
Love
fam
it.
come along. I bought tickets. I said, everybody, be ready at 11 a.m. We'll be leaving. We'll be going to DC. We'll be driving together. We'll be having brunch. We'll be going to the thing. And they did
Yes.
great. They all loved it.
Are you that person for your family? Are you like the organizer of like, here's the cool things that we're gonna do, and if you don't do it, like you guys just don't do anything?
Yes, I'm definitely. I'm an oldest child. I know you're
Yeah.
not, but it does kind of feel like an oldest child thing where you're like, we're going to do
Mhm.
this at this time and this. And so, yeah, I feel like we would just be at home if I weren't always like, hey, let's do this.
I love it. Yes, I am not the oldest child, so all I do is provide the fun ideas with no real clear-cut plan of how to
You're the
execute
entertainment,
said idea.
though, right?
Right, exactly. So I just make the jokes, sometimes bring the booze, whatever I can.
I love that. Love that.
Thank you.
What
Thank
did you
you.
do? How are you? What did you do this weekend? Brag on
Yeah.
yourself.
Oh goodness. I have nothing really to brag upon, but this past weekend I was basically just trying to like reorganize my life now that I'm getting like back in the swing of things health-wise. And so like all the stuff that I was putting off, whether it was like cleaning or like opening boxes and just doing whatever. That's essentially what my entire weekend was filled with. And now I'm scrambling because I have committed to going to a Halloween party this weekend. And I still don't know what I'm good. But the thing
Okay,
is,
I was
of
about to
course,
ask.
I figured out what Will should be like with the drop of a hat. Because for some reason I was like, no, let's not do a couple costume. And now I'm like, crap, we
Okay.
should have done a couple's costume because it would have been so much easier for me to like come up with something. And now I'm scrambling.
Oh, I can't wait to see what you all dress up as. Can't wait.
Yeah, same. But regardless, it'll be fun. I do enjoy actually getting out of the house every now and then. So, and there's a couple of other friends too that just recently started like hanging out with here in the Charlotte area. So I've invited them to come along. So it should be a good old time.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if this was with Charlotte people or Auburn
Hmm.
people or I don't know what other people you have, but I'm sure you have some.
Yeah,
So
right. A little mix of both. Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. But that's pretty much what I've been up to.
fun. Love that. Well,
I think some other things that I've been doing though is
yeah.
definitely keeping up with all of this pop culture news on Twitter. And I'm so excited that we're bringing this back because I got a lot of thoughts.
Mhm.
I got a lot of thoughts. First of
Let's
all,
dive in.
Insecure.
Yeah.
Do you
Okay.
watch Insecure?
Okay.
Say
You're
it.
gonna drag me. I don't. I feel like
Mm,
now that I have Tomi and Will were kind enough to lend me their HBO Max password.
yes.
So I'm able to dive into the HBO content. So I need to start watching. It's kind of intimidating because there's like what 5 seasons now, but
Yeah. They're 5 seasons, but besides the last 2 seasons, like including the one that's right now, they're 8 episodes, and they're only 30 minutes each.
oh, okay, that's not bad at all. I was
Yeah,
thinking like an
yeah.
hour, like 20 episodes. I was like, this is a lot, but okay,
No, no,
okay.
no, 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 no. They go by very quickly to the point where you're like, this is annoying because right when you're like getting into it, it's cut off.
So I know that just started back up. How are you? How are you feeling?
Yeah.
How are you feeling about it? Are you happy?
I
Sad?
am loving it. I'm sad because it's coming to an end, and I feel like it is such like a good cultural TV show of just like it's truly unlike any other show on right now of sharing like the black experience, and there's not like black trauma or pain or like all of these things that come along with the experience of being a black person in America, but just kind of like all encompassing. And of course, it doesn't shy away from those topics, like things that still happen in terms of like prejudice or things in the workplace. But instead of it being like this is the main point of this storyline, it's more just like this is part of life, just like our romantic relationships and friendships and dealing with parents and stuff like that. And so I really enjoyed it and seeing it like grow. You can see like production budget wise of how it grows over the 5 seasons, and then like just seeing Issa Rae, who kind of started off like us as a regular content creator on YouTube, making little shows, and now having huge deal with HBO, and she's now doing like a huge like 5 movie and TV series deal with Warner Brothers, I think, over the next couple of years. So it's inspiring to say the least. But yeah, it's sad it's coming to a close, but I am enjoying the process so far, and I definitely got Will to like join in too. I made him watch everything so I could like get caught up and also get him in, so that when it comes on Sundays, I'm like, yeah, we're watching.
It's game time.
Sorry, it's game time. Yeah, so definitely watch it, listeners. Check it out. You will not regret it.
I definitely want to because I saw the Twitter discourse around Amanda Seales this week, and I was like, oh, I got to get caught
Yes.
up.
And that was something too. So like the episode was like about going back to a college reunion at Stanford, and one of the main characters, Issa's friend, Amanda Seales, she is an AKA, which is historically black sorority. And so she's like wearing the letters, wearing all the like pink and green, which are their colors and stuff throughout the episodes. And people were just getting very like OD about it. I don't know why, because her character has always been an AKA, and so was another girl in the show. So I'm kind of confused as why people were mad that she was wearing it, even though she was not an AKA in real life. And I'm like, is this the energy that you have for people who play doctors and they're not doctors in real life? Like,
Right. They seem very pressed. I know there is like more, it's like a little more, it's less acceptable for people that are not Black Greeks to wear Black Greek letters. So like I
mm-hmm.
kind of get it, but at the same time I was like, this is like a shot for your sorority that is overlooked all the time. Not all the time, but quite a bit by like white media to be front and center on HBO. We should be about
Yeah,
it.
definitely. And that's how I felt about it. I'm not a part of any Greek sorority affiliation, really, so I don't know if I can speak on it. But for me, from the outside looking in, I was like, this is a fascinating case study that maybe we should get to the root of later on in time of why
Yeah.
it brings it out. But people are loud and proud about their organization, so good for them. But yeah, that's pretty much my insecure thoughts. But it made me also want to like think about some other shows that I want to get into. You know what? I'm going to save Bachelor news before we get to our recap stuff. So let me talk about some other things happening in some black news. Is the Lil Nas X and Boozy feud? I don't even know if you can call it a feud at this point because it seems just like Boozy is just, I don't know, like Lil Nas X just like
Obsessed.
chilling there, and Boozy's obsessed. He has tweeted again because Lil Nas X made a joke about like them having some collab coming out soon, like a music whatever, and just like a tweet, like just nothing. And he came back, Boozy came back with like the most vitriolic tweet and hate and said like, essentially telling him to like kill himself and like, you would do the world a huge favor if you did this, like nobody would want you here, saying you hate yourself, all this stuff to Lil Nas X. The tweet was up for far way too long. People like thousands of people reported it, and Twitter like didn't say anything. And all Twitter did was remove the tweets. They did not remove his profile, which is like definitely against their guidelines. Which I think he also has his Instagram like revoked too for similar things, not against like Lil Nas X, but just a lot of inappropriate content stuff. So I'm like, this guy, how many chances are we going to give him? Why are we giving him a platform to speak on these things that are just nothing but hate? And once it gets to like threats and all this stuff, like it's a safety issue. And we always talk about how proud we are of Lil Nas X and all the things that he's been able to do at the forefront, which is being like authentically himself. But it's a reality of what comes along with that, just because of the people who are still so like bigoted and have these views towards just being homophobic and stuff in this country. And it's tragic that he has to go through something like this. But it is nice to see all the support and stuff that Lil Nas X like constantly gets whenever news like this, whatever, keeps blowing up, and making sure that he's okay, and like how far we can come from this.
Yeah, it's definitely frustrating because I think it's easy for me, at least as a heterosexual person, to be like, wow, like we've come so far in terms of being more accepting of people that are gay. But clearly, there's still a lot of homophobia. There's still a lot of issues and stuff that we, like as straight people, have a responsibility to, like push forward too, as much as gay people. And
Sure.
so, I do hope he's in a good head state. I think it's easy to like to make jokes and like brush it off. And I think that's his personality. And like, I completely get that because I'm kind of like that in a way. But I hope
Mm.
he really is in a good like headspace and has good people around him and knows just like how loved he is, because it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think one thing too that was an argument that was brought up recently in regards to it is about the red flags of if you're in a relationship and you hear your partner saying like, "Oh, I like Lil Nas X, I just don't agree with his lifestyle," or something like that, and like how it is on us to check people who are saying things like that in your like heterosexual relationships. Like not enough women are seeing people say this and using it as a red flag of like, hey, this is not cool, and like not moving forward with your relationship if they say something like that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think too, even like beyond relationships, like I've had friendships with people
Mm,
where they're like, I'm Christian, and so like I am fine with it, but I just don't agree with their, like you said, I don't agree with their lifestyle, but that's okay. And it's like it really is easy, I think, sometimes for us to just be like, oh, okay, not say anything. And like in reality, we should be like checking those viewpoints all the time,
yeah,
making people uncomfortable all the time.
definitely, I agree. Another large news story that happened this past week, and one that was very upsetting to hear, was the incident that happened on the set of the movie Rust that was filming with Alec Baldwin. And if you haven't heard of this story, so Alec Baldwin uh, killed someone on the set mistakenly, a cinematographer. Her name was Helena Hutchins. And actually, I didn't even know about this too. He also wounded the director with a prop gun on the set. And so there's a lot of people questioning, how did this happen? Especially when this is not the first time that this has happened, and kind of the spiral of it all. But I remember, I think, texting you, Nicole, and some other people in like a group chat and just thinking like, I cannot imagine what he's sitting with and feeling right now, to know it was just another day in the office type of thing on set, and then having this huge responsibility, and how sad it is for her family to be going through something like this when it absolutely did not have to happen.
Yeah, I think that's the toughest part, is knowing that this was like really an unnecessary tragedy. There's a lot still coming out that we're learning. Alec Baldwin was, I believe, is a producer on this film, but
Mm-hmm.
we do know that the crew had walked out due to safety concerns,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of is really tragic now, seeing everything that happened. So I think I saw something today that they said the police there were going to release a report today, like an initial report. But
Ooh.
it just is really tragic. It also is interesting too that I think there's been a lot of conversation around like gun safety on movie sets this past week, which is wonderful. And we should be having those conversations, but it's so kind of dark when you think about like how quickly that moved when we had the conversation about guns in our society is like it's not a conversation we have. Like we'll have a shooting in a school and no
Mhm.
one's like maybe we should take guns. You know, they're just like,
Yeah,
"Oh, that's
yeah.
just a bad actor."
Yeah, it's fascinating to see how quickly they are already saying like, okay, let's figure out ways that this doesn't need to happen. Because yeah, we're in the year 2021. Like, why are we still using prop guns, even if it's not live ammo necessarily? Like, obviously, there's still ways that people can get hurt from what we've seen here, and it's like we can just use technology to put all of this in. Like, there's no need to be able like, yeah, sure, it's more money, but it's like when it comes to safety, and that should be a priority of making sure that no one has to deal with a tragedy like this ever again. And so yeah, it's weird. I think Hollywood is always used as ways to shift American culture, and so hopefully maybe like with this happening, it can force more conversations to happen, like political landscape of how we can move forward and have and promote more gun safety.
Yeah, for sure.
There were some things like you said that we're still learning. So yes, it was a prop gun. So apparently someone yelled cold gun before giving it to him, like the prop master. So like letting them know like it was completely fine, like didn't have any live ammo in it. The gun had had issues twice beforehand on the sets. They didn't have union workers, and for I did not realize this, but they are like more equipped to handle safety regulations, and they are more like up to date because they have to be like union workers. And so when they had that issue with them not being on set, and that's why like people were walking out. Of course, people who were in their place obviously weren't as familiar with that, and that can lead to issues. So within that, him also being a producer, like I don't know if that means that he greenlit all of those issues to happen. But yeah, I'm interested to see that story come out later today to kind of have more information on that because again, it is wild, and I definitely feel for her family. I know she left behind a 9-year-old son and husband too, so tragic, and we'll definitely be thinking about them right now. Let's move on to some a little bit of lighter news.
Hmm. Okay.
We have some breakups, and we have some not makeups necessarily, but an engagement from Bachelor Nation and ex-Bachelor Nation. So our good friend Mr. Harrison got engaged to Lauren Zima this week, which is funny because it also happened on the exact same day that Katie Thurston and Blake shared that they had broken up just a couple of months after their season aired. Let's just talk about it all at once because I find that all comical to me.
It's all comical. I have been very critical of Katie on this
Mm,
podcast. We have.
mm,
But I do want to say the play of releasing the breakup news the same day, right after, really hours after Chris Harrison announced his
yeah,
engagement,
yeah.
chef's kiss.
Well,
Beautiful.
so I was about to say, so do you think it was like they already had it planned to release it that day, or do you think they saw, ooh, we can kind of like cloak the news of this with the Chris Harrison engagement?
I think I think it was to take some of the shine off of Chris Harrison. I think they
Ooh.
were broken up before Michelle's season started airing.
Mm.
Because we know like Peter and Kelly last year were kind of told like wait to announce
Yeah.
until and then they didn't. But I would not be shocked if production had kind of asked Katie and Blake like, can you just wait so that we can let Michelle kind of have her moment to start out? And
Mm.
so maybe they had already pre-planned the date, but just the theatrics of releasing it the exact same day.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So for me, it's just like looking back on the season, everyone says it's a waste of a season at this point.
It could have been an email. It could have been not an email. It could have been a Bachelor in Paradise love story.
Yeah, a text message, any of it. Because at this point, it's like, so who are the fun people we got from this cast, really? Or like people who are like mainstays in this franchise? Thomas, Aaron. That's all I got. I think.
I mean, do we think Greg is going to come back
I,
around at some point?
I don't think it would be a shock to see Greg, Justin, or Andrew S in Paradise. I think Greg might take a little bit more coaxing just because of how I would call it dramatic that probably was to have that fight, and then the discourse that followed online of basically calling him an abuser for saying that he wanted a girl to tell him that she loved him when he said I love you to her. Wild to me. And then after the final rose, or I don't know if it was after the final rose or meant to tell all, where she kind of like went off on him too.
Yeah, after the final rose, I was.
Yeah. Yeah, it was rough. And I think it's funny because a lot of people are like, ooh, now she's gonna like move on to one of her other people, because after the Peter season, anything is fair game. But I don't think we'll see her with anyone from her cast. Andrew S actually was very vocal and which I'm cracking up. Actually shared an Insta story that was like a screenshot and said, you know what, happy for them, or not happy for them, like, sorry for them, but that chapter of my life is closed.
The door is closed.
Door is closed.
Yeah, the only one I could maybe see her getting with is Michael A. Just because he was leaving those like thirsty comments on her Instagram, knowing she was so like perhaps, but I think even he has perhaps moved on, and I think she does not want to move to Ohio still.
Yeah,
so
I was about to say, I think that's what it is. It's like, I don't know if he's moved on, but I think it's still like, she's not gonna end up in Ohio. That's just what it is.
She's enjoying San Diego. Good for her. Saw some people saying maybe she's with John now.
They're hoping for it because we all thought, oh, this guy is top 4 when we first saw the cast. She said that's her type when he got out of the limo. Thought they were trying to trick us with the edit by not showing him and stuff. And it's like, no, girl, he just left really early.
Played us all.
So, why do you think they broke up?
I know like their sources are saying like it's the distance, and they weren't like they knew there would be distance, but they weren't really ready for it or whatever. I don't know. I just think like they moved too fast. Part of me wonders if she ever really was, like she said, like I always loved Blake, but we even said watching it, we were like, it was so weird how she went from so heartbroken about Greg leaving to like, I freaking love you, Blake. And so even if she did feel that way, like that's really quickly to like process those emotions. And then I'm sure for Blake watching that back, that had to be kind of like, he had to question, does she really, are we really on the same page here? So, I mean, I thought they would maybe last longer, not forever, but longer. I thought maybe like a year, 9 months to get those partnerships, but but they didn't. On paper, they seemed compatible. Will we see Blake on another season of The Bachelorette?
God, I hope not. God, I hope not.
Please, production, don't do that to me. I'm ready to move on.
I'd be very happy if we never saw Katie or Blake as a part of this franchise ever again.
Yeah, agreed. There's some rumors about potentially another Bachelor season coming. Like we know that we have Clayton coming, but there's rumors that there's going to be another season. I'm tired, y'all. If I have to see Katie Thurston on that season,
I don't. I would hope. You know what? I was gonna say I would hope she'd be smarter than that. But listen, there's also she tried to have a stand-up comedy routine. Also, I don't know if it was this past weekend or the weekend before that, where she did something with Whitney Cummings, and my God, they gave her a 10-minute set, which even the most like talented stand-up comedians would never do that as their very first thing. Or if they do, they're going to do a bunch of open mic nights. They're going to practice material on friends and family. And those just seems like all things that did not happen with her. Apparently, she just made like a bunch of poop jokes for 10 minutes and kept saying like, get me off this stage. And it was very uncomfortable. So props to her for like putting herself out there. But it's not a good look for me. It seemed kind of gross. And someone who like that just makes that their entire personality. I don't know why that's the go-to for like white women who think they're funny, is like to talk about sex and poop, and that just like makes them super cool. It may work on a 15-second TikTok video, but that's pretty much about it.
Yeah. The 45-second clip I saw of her set, not even the whole thing, and I was like, this is tiring.
Yeah. There's a difference of being like funny and being like a comedian. Very, very different.
Yes.
But yeah, I think with the breakup, I agree that it must have been like a distance thing. I don't think people realize until they like get into it how much you have to one work at long distance. I would never suggest to do a long distance relationship at the beginning of your relationship. I know it has worked for some people, but I feel like it's better off being successful if you've been dating for a while and then you have to do long distance with an end date in mind. So it's like, oh, I'm going here for school, I'm going here for X short like term job, and then like you're going to get back together at some point, in the future. So you have a date to look forward to of not just like the what if like of whatever. And so like that, and then I think not really taking into consideration the whole like different countries thing, your time zones. Like I don't even think they really got time to be together. Probably more than like 2 or 3 times. Like I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that, because of quarantine rules that Canada had for a long time this year. And then also mixed with like his trips and stuff to Africa, the continent, since Katie doesn't know the countries. So it is what it is. I don't think Blake was, I mean, he was into her, but I don't think he was in love with her. I think he just like loves love, and can kind of work with anyone. And as we saw of him going from Claire to Tasha to Katie. And at this point, I don't think she would have worked with anyone on her season, unfortunately. But it is what it is. So I wish them both well.
Yeah, I don't want a second season. That's really it. So
Yeah, I think after hearing her stuff about Greg, hearing how she talked about Mikey P with him being a virgin, and how she talked about Thomas trying to like get him to fantasy suites just to use him for sex and then kick him off. All of it was just not a good look and didn't make me really want to root for her and Blake as a couple. And I'm very thankful that we're kind of having a recleansing, a restart with Michelle's season here.
yeah, hopefully, I feel like Katie has a lot of growing up to do, and hopefully she's able to do that off screen. So, well, we did have a bachelorette we both at this point like better last night, and that is Michelle Young.
Yeah, I love how you said at this point, like you're like, just in case she
You know,
lets us
I've
down.
been played before. I've been played before. Won't be played again. Matt James, I haven't forgotten.
Woo!
So can I just start by saying we're only on episode 2, but it has just been like, I'm like, this is what I love about this show. Like, she's just so direct, mature. She seems to know what she wants.
Yeah,
I love it.
I agree. And I think also something that's funny that kind of comes with that directness is that she's not able to kind of fake who she's into and who she's not into. It very much shows on her face that she looks bored. And so it's not necessarily a critique I have for her, because like, good for you for being so genuine, so real. But it's just very funny to like clearly see it. She's like interacting with some of these guys, and I'm like, oh, poor boy, he has no idea.
Yeah, it's good. So we start out the episode. She's talking to Tasha. I tweeted last night. I was like, I just get such a like rush of serotonin when I see her and Tasha together on my screen. Like, I'm happy instantly. I'm smiling. They're so beautiful. They're talking about the group date process. Tasha says that's when Zach really stood out to her. Michelle's like, I'm excited. So we have our first group date. And the men that end up on that are Brandon, Romeo, Rick, PJ, LT, Will, Olu, Casey, Danny, and Peter. And so they are going to a 5th grade classroom, quote unquote, with some child actors or students, perhaps. Who could know?
Yeah.
But they're going to do some like a day in 5th grade. Are you smarter than a 5th grader? And it turns out very few of them are. So Romeo, of course, is our mathematician. He's very good at doing the multiplication problems. The rest of the men, kind of missing the mark. Can't really spell, can't follow directions. But at one point, they're asked to spell out narcissist, and Will writes Peter, because this entire date he's been like trying to get Michelle's attention. It's been hilarious because one of the students has been like, leave her alone.
I loved it. Drag him.
I would love for her to have a show.
Yeah.
Love for her to have a show. But yeah, she's like, stop, pay attention. So Peter can't do anything right. He can't spell. He doesn't do the science experiment right. He can't do addition or multiplication. It's fine.
Which, do you think producers set him up to like not be able to do the science thing? Or like he truly wasn't able to?
Oh, that would be something if they gave him like different directions or whatever. So then
Yeah,
he
he's like
didn't like.
shaking it. He's like, wait, why is everyone else exploding?
They probably did set him up. You're right. They probably did.
I just thought it was very sus. And I'm like, why does he have to keep reminding us that he is a pizzapreneur or whatever? Do you
Yeah,
think it's editing, or you think he really is that into himself and like trying to put himself out there like that much?
I don't know. It was his entry stunt.
Yeah.
Like he tossed a pizza. So perhaps is he there for the wrong reasons?
I mean, it makes me feel like that when you're constantly sharing about your job like over and over and over again, and not even like in one-on-one time with her, but just like in front of everyone. It's a lot for me.
Yeah. So they're asked to spell out narcissist. Will writes Peter. It's funny.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. I'm not sorry. Sorry, Peter. It was funny. I laughed. I was like, which one of these people is gonna write? So, and then I was like, there we go. So he writes Peter. Peter is infuriated. He is like, how dare he write my name in front of Michelle and call me a narcissist in front of Michelle, in front of everyone,
In front of these children.
in front of these children, when I am a pizzapreneur. So that's going to be the conflict of the evening portion of the date. And sure enough, he is just like so mad. He takes Will to the side. He's yelling at him at one point. Michelle hears them but ignores them. Loved it.
Which I was shocked. I thought she was going to say like, excuse me, Olu, like let me go see what's going on, and nothing.
He just kept talking to him. She was like, so how are you feeling, Olu? And I was like, wow. Yeah. During that evening portion also, she talks to each of the men. I said, I think we underestimated Rick, Tomi.
I think we estimated him correctly.
I mean, he still looks like a serial killer. He has the serial killer eyes. I'm not going to take it back. Okay? I'm not taking it back.
Thank you.
But, he was kind of smooth talking to her. He brought her in this, like, fill-in-the-blank story type sheet. Mm-hmm. And so, and then it, like, ends with a kiss and everything. And I was like...
And he did, like, the shoulder kiss thing, too, right? Like, as she was reading it.
He did.
Yeah, it made me a little uncomfortable. But, I mean, if she's into it, then good for you, girl.
He's kind of funny. He's kind of creepy, but he's kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
Who could know? So, yeah, they have their moment. She has her moment with Brandon, who can't spell, and she brings it up. And I honestly thought she was going to, like, give him flashcards at one point. Like, she was like, so you really can't spell? And he was like, well, I'm going to keep trying. And I was like, she was really gracious about it. But I was like, is that good enough?
Yeah.
Because he couldn't spell anything.
I was thinking, like, how dramatic would it be if you were someone who, like, really struggled in school, like, all the time, and you, like, got put on this date? You just kept having, like, flashbacks.
What if they put Jamie on this date? Yeah, what if they put...
You know? Like, that's what I'm thinking, like, I wonder if that was any of their... in their stories of when they were writing in and being cast for this show, because I would truly hate it. And so props to them, because, I mean, sometimes when you're put on the spot, too, you're like, spell this, and you're like, it can get to you. But I do always love those children date things, whatever they may be, because I think it's just so funny. It's like put adults in that element of trying to remember things that you learned, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, and the children just roasted them. It was great. So we have that. The group date rose goes to Brandon. Yes, Brandon. It was cute. Rick thought he was going to get it. It goes to Brandon. Brandon was cute. They had a cute moment. Then
did you see, like, when he got the rose, he goes, like, sitting back? It was so cute. He was, like, taking a deep breath.
He's a puppy?
Yes, truly. I mean, it's weird for me because it says he's 26. I guess, sure, I'll believe it, ABC. But I look at him and I see a child. His face is very much a baby. And so I just wanted to protect him at all costs when he did that, because I think he's really, really fallen for her.
Aww. So then we see the 1-in-1 date card come. It is for Jamie. listeners, we don't like Jamie. I don't like
No.
Jamie. I've been open about it. But I really didn't like it because he gets the date card and he's like, this is as much about me finding out if she's the right person for me, because I could just leave in the middle of this date if she's not right for me. I don't know her. And I was like, then why did you come on this show, Jamie? Why are you here?
Mm-hmm.
I know you've never watched an episode of reality TV before, and it shows. But the men kind of think it's weird too. Michelle shows up. She's in this like pink workout set. She looked fabulous. Outfits stunning on her this season.
Mm-hmm.
And she drives him to Joshua Tree, and they are going rock climbing. It's not for me. It's not for me.
Not for me either. I was like, I'd be kind of mad because I feel like I'd be a little bit clumsy, and then end up like scraping myself all of this, and then for the rest of the season where I'm wearing these like beautiful elegant dresses, I just have like a gash on my arm and my knees. No, thank you.
No. But they had good teamwork, good conversation, I guess. I don't know. I don't really want to give this man any credit. I'm sorry, guys. But if you like him, but he's kind of coaching her. Like, she's like, oh, I don't know where to step. And he's like, look up and like, move your hand to the left. So it was like kind of good in that way. And she said, normally I'm the coach when I'm in a relationship. And so it was nice to have someone like coaching me. And so I was like, that's what you need, just not Jamie.
Did you feel any type of like connection between them?
No,
romantic?
I didn't. I was like, are they going to kiss on top of this rock? And they did, but I was like, I still don't feel it. And it could be my bias. It could be because I don't like Jamie, but I was like, I don't feel it. You're not going to convince me that this is the man she wants to marry.
No.
Sorry. Then we get to the evening portion, and Tomi texted me and she's like, you haven't said like you hate Jamie on Twitter tonight, have you? Because it's not a good look. I was like, no, I haven't said it yet. So it was, what I tweeted about this was, I said, I'm deeply uncomfortable with this premise that the show has always, that in order to move forward in this process, you have to like reopen your wounds and show your trauma in this, like relive your trauma really in a way that is probably detrimental to the person. Jamie talks about, I'll give a content warning here, we are going to talk about suicide. Jamie talks about growing up and that he had a, I don't know, not picture book family experience, and that his mother had him very young. His father was not in the picture and left. His mom was fine at first. He was excelling in school, and then she started to struggle with her mental health. He witnessed her at like 12, I believe, like trying to slit her own wrists. And then when he was 24, she did take her life. And so that obviously has played a big role in who he is as a person and how it shaped him. My critique on this is not for Jamie, and I want to be clear about that. It's more for ABC. One, there was no content warning. There was no content warning before or after. There was no, normally we get a phone number shown perhaps after or at the end. Did not get that either. They kind of just like threw some stuff up on social media. It seemed like very last minute because people were complaining. I just feel like talking about suicide is something that should, common sense, you should know there should be a content warning for it.
For sure. And I think it was just weird because we have seen it happen before. Content warnings when Kaylin shared about her assault, and same with Katie. And now that I think about it too, did it happen with Ben when he was on Tayshia's season?
I think we did. I don't think they did a content warning before, but I think they should like suicide prevention hotline number after. And so to not show it here just seemed like inconsistent.
Yeah, and like maybe it's because they didn't think, because it didn't happen to the actual contestant, but it was more of like a family story that he was sharing. That's why they didn't think of it. But it was very unsettling, and I think to me why I mean, like, it's Jamie's story to tell, but it felt very graphic in the delivery of it. And so for me, I just kept thinking like, whoa, this is a lot. This is a lot. And props to Michelle for comforting him and saying like, thank you for sharing and all this stuff. But I can't imagine what that's like on a true first date type of setting, to kind of get all of that information at once.
Right, because we know this is like an accelerated dating process. We've talked about that. But yeah, this just seems, and we kind of talked about this last week where we were like, you have to move really fast, but like to be on your first date and sharing that, like, I don't know that I would have received it I don't want to say I would have received it poorly, but I don't know that I would have received it in the way she had,
Mhm.
or been as compassionate, because it just kind of felt like overload to me.
Yeah. But yeah, it's hard, like, because you want to make sure that you are building a relationship where they understand like who you are as a person and like what makes you you, and that's obviously something that has very much defined his life and how he approaches things. So it's something he has to share. But yeah, it's weird, and it kind of feels invasive when we are kind of privy to those conversations too. But
Yeah, it felt exploited. Like, I feel
mhm.
like that would have been a good conversation for them to have off camera, or for them to not air the footage of, or to somehow summarize it for us, like you said, in a less graphic way where we don't know all the details. But yeah, it just didn't feel like a good look for ABC. So
Yeah, but
um,
before we move on to, I wanted to share too, like why I thought the story kind of highlights some other things. Where one, I'm like, why is a child feeling the responsibility of watching his parent when
yeah, because
him
it
and
says
his
he and his
sister
sister
like
would like
went
take
back and
turns
forth?
skipping school. I was like,
Yeah,
this is
it was a
how our
lot, and then
society fails.
yes, and then I think too, I think that's because it's like obviously from a class standpoint of like money, they did not have the resources to put her in a facility where someone could be watching her, that she would kind of come up with a treatment plan, all this, and so like their best bet was just like, all right, we just got to have one of us watch her all the time. I don't understand like where the grandparents were during this situation, for him to having to skip school and stuff at a young age, but yeah, I think it just like shows all the different levels of mental health in this country, and what we have to work on of access and making sure that people, no matter background wise, can get the help that they need, because it absolutely should not be on the kid in that situation of having to deal with all that. So that was really tragic.
Right. Or even the grandparents, like
Yeah.
it shouldn't all be on them financially or whatever. So yeah, you're right. That is a good point to highlight, in that
Mm-hmm.
we have a lot of work to do.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was really dark. Then we go to commercial break. Like I said, no warning, no phone number, but we come back and we see Joe on the phone. He's talking to his mother, I believe. He's kind of not crying. I don't think he actually cried, but he learns that his longtime basketball coach passed away,
Mm-hmm.
and it's someone that he was very close to, and so it's crushing. So then we see the second group date, which is love and basketball themed, perhaps just basketball themed, but it felt very love and basketball. And we have Nate, Malik, Joe, Clayton, Pardeep, Martin, Rodney, Chris S, Chris G, and Spencer on this date.
Let's go part
And
deep.
yeah, I was like, let's go. Production did all these boys dirty, because they
Yeah,
took
they
this
did.
date and they said, this is for Joe. This is for Joe and Michelle. It was basically a one-on-one, and the rest of the guys were there, if we're being honest.
Right. And I'm like, did they do this just to like stir up stuff with them of like, oh, that they know each? Because I'm like, I feel like this would have been a wonderful one-on-one date to just do like a true love and basketball, and they're like trying to take the ball away from me. Like, I think that would have been a lot more romantic. So kind of wild that this is what they decide to go with. But
There were some funny moments that did not include Joe, including when they first get there. They bring in two WNBA players. They're like, we're going to warm up. So Michelle's passing the ball to all of them. Nate misses a layup. Again, I want to reiterate, Nate is 6'8", so it's it's not that far. And Michelle told him that. She said,
yeah,
Nate, how could you miss that? It's
you're
only
like, you're
like,
too
if
close
you
to
reach your
that.
arm up, you're there. And he dropped down and started doing push-ups. He was embarrassed. I was like, I love that. I love their banter. It's good.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, and then we get a lot of, I mean, it really did kind of feel like a one-on-one during a group date, because we saw all of this footage of Michelle talking about Joe and how he was Mr. Minnesota basketball in 2011, and she was Miss Minnesota basketball, but she was the runner-up. But she's
Mm-hmm.
like, it's a big deal, and it's so special that we have that Minnesota bond in basketball. And she was like, I don't think any of the guys know that Joe is like a basketball player. I'm like, well, they do now, because he just embarrassed all of them. I wasn't right.
So right, and then yeah, I don't know who said it. Maybe it was Nate or someone else that Clayton, I think, that said that Joe has played basketball at the highest level. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure he only played college, which like still, great because it's Division 1. He played for Minnesota, but I was like, it's not like he was pro or even doing G League stuff. So
Yeah, I think Clayton was like, he's really good, but he's like not talking about how good he is. And then Nate was like, he's our silent assassin. It was funny. But yeah, so Joe's team is losing, and they call a timeout. Michelle goes down there and she's like putting her hands on his shoulders, and she's like, "Come on, Mr. Basketball." And I was like, "What are we witnessing here?" Like, she likes him. She likes him.
Witnessing
Which
some collusion. And she was
he
like, I'm
was.
trying to get some extra time with you, idiot.
Mhm.
Get it together.
She's like, "Please win." He is in both of our Final Fours, so I'm not mad at them looking
Nope,
good together.
not
But
at all.
especially after Ryan kind of fumbled the bag for me. But so they're flirting, they're cheering him on. Nate's team loses, but of course she still wants to see, or Joe's team loses, and she still wants to see Joe. So she gives him an MVP award, which did seem fair, at least in the footage we saw. It was like clearly he outshone everyone. So he will be allowed to come to the dinner portion of the date, even though his team lost. The rest of his team has to go home, though.
Yeah. I was only upset about it because a lot of the people who are on that team already haven't gotten like any screen time or like any other like additional time and stuff with her. And so I was like, oh, this isn't a good look. A lot of them that I want them to be around longer. So it's hard, especially like, basically after like the first night is the most difficult to get through, and then definitely the
The
second
first
rose
group date.
ceremony.
Yeah.
And so, oh, I
So I was
felt for
like,
them.
Pardeep, hold on,
Yeah,
hold
yeah.
on. So yeah, I was bummed. We go to the evening portion, and it is still like kind of the Joe show. Like she pulls him. She pulls out a basketball hoop. I don't know where out of, and they play some more basketball. Just the two of them. They kiss. She also seems really into Nate, and this is when we see, I think, Martin say for the first time, he's like, it just seems like maybe they know each other from before. Like maybe there's something there with Joe and Michelle. And Nate, a true king, was just like, I don't care.
Right.
He was like, I'm focused on me and Michelle. Like, you can worry about whatever. But he was like, I'm not going to waste my time talking to Michelle about Joe. I'm here to talk about me. And
Yeah.
so I loved that he had that attitude, because I think it's so easy in these situations on the show to get sucked into the drama. And he was just like, nah, I'm good.
But I feel like we see this like season time and time again, and the ones that can say that obviously are the ones that are confident in the relationship. They've either gotten a date or like, I mean, when you get the first impression rose, like, like you're good at least for another week type of thing.
Right.
So he can very much have that confidence, like, whatever, like, I know I'm building something with her. But the other people who are a little bit more of like uneasy of like, will I be here next week? Will I get time with her? I can understand kind of falling into the little spiral of feeling like some things are unfair, or it's unbalanced of you being able to grow something with her.
Yeah, for sure. So she gives that group date rose to Joe. At this point, no one has brought up their concerns about Joe to her. And then we go into the cocktail party rose ceremony portion of the episode. And so, of course, Martin is still concerned about Joe, brings it to Jamie's attention. Jamie has a rose from his one-on-one date, but it's like, interesting, because I need to get to the bottom of this, because I don't know if I can date her if she knows Joe. Again, I was like, I told y'all this man wasn't good. Y'all were trying to roast me after this one-on-one portion. I'll tell you, he's still not a good man.
No.
And so he's like, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. And then he says, like, he heard from a friend of his that Michelle was out in Minneapolis with a light-skinned baller. And that's her boo.
Mm-hmm.
And which I was like, I need like the demois, like I need the screenshots, I need something. You can't just go in and be like, yeah, I heard you out there with a tall, light-skinned man. I'm sure she knows lots of tall-skinned men.
Right.
Her friend that like she was posting on Instagram that we were like, he should come on her season.
Mm-hmm.
He's a tall, light-skinned man.
Okay. Yes, I do think Jamie is trash. I think from his bio, it showed that his his viewpoints and stuff of the world, and it's seeping in here. I said he has a little bit more of a conservative view of where he thinks he's the person running the show and that the women need to fall in line. And I think that's exactly kind of what we see here, regardless of that the show is called The Bachelorette.
Let me pause really quickly
okay.
just to give you a moment to cook, because I didn't mention something very important. When he was going on his one-on-one date before he left, he's talking about, like, I need to make sure she's right for me. But he talks about how, like, he at the drop of a hat will travel to third world countries. Please cook on that. Go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
Right. Okay, I also heard that too, and I was like, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? That felt all sorts of wrong to me. The layers. But yeah, I think just like the audacity for him to kind of come in at this point and just like accusing the lead of being there for the wrong reasons, essentially. But do you think he actually heard this again from a friend? Because I'm always thinking that there's producer manipulation. Or do you think a producer like put this story into his head of like saying these things? I think regardless, like he was going to be the one to do it, to ask her, even though it's like the most asinine thing to do.
Yeah, I think the rest of the men had enough common sense that like they were talking about it, but they weren't going to be the person to bring it to her.
Right.
So clearly production knew. Yeah, but production was like, if we want this to get to her, we have to go through Jamie.
Because, like, what exactly is he saying? Like, that she actually has a boyfriend? Or, like, she's seeing someone concurrently with her filming the show?
And he didn't even seem... So he goes to Michelle. And he brings this up. He's like, yeah, I have some things to talk about outside of us before we, really dive in. And he walks away and he's like, I think the conversation went really well. Michelle's like near tears, like, because he's questioning her character and he's saying like, all of the men are questioning your character. All of us think you're not here for us and that you have a relationship at home.
Which, like, regardless of how he came up with the story, if producers told it to him or if he actually had a friend tell him, that was very much like a lie of like, everyone is talking about this type of thing.
Right. I was like, there were 3 of you, maybe 4 of you in a little huddle. It wasn't everybody. So Michelle is clearly upset. We actually get a cutaway of like him saying, he's like, I think that conversation went really well. And Michelle like literally like, and again, Michelle just handled it with such class and like directness. She talks to Tayshia again, little serotonin. And then she goes and she's like, everybody sit down, please. Teacher Michelle is here. And she's like, it's been brought to my attention that some of you are concerned about my relationship with Joe, if we knew each other prior. She dips into a point that I was like, layers. Like, she was like, if I'm ever seen out with a man of color or a couple, if I'm on a romantic dinner with a white man, no one thinks we're together. No one thinks we can be together. And I was like, say it again, because the white audience needs to hear this. I cannot, like, if you, like, it is a societal thing where if a black person is seen with a white person, it is not assumed that there could be any romantic connection.
Yeah.
But if they're with another black person, another person of color, it's like, oh, y'all are together? Y'all are cute. That's your boo? And so I love that she, like, went directly into that. She said, Joe and I exchanged DMs a few years ago, which it was a year ago. Listeners...
Let's hold her accountable. Let's hold her accountable.
But Tomi's right. We got to keep it 100. Shout out to our friends at Two Bros and a Rose, who were the first people to point this out on Twitter last night and that I saw. They did talk about George Floyd, so that would have been summer 2020. This was filmed in summer 2021. So a couple years ago isn't accurate. Sorry, Michelle. But she says, we exchanged a few DMs and then Joe ghosted me. Highlight of this whole conversation is Nate's face when she says Joe ghosted me, because Nate's like, he ghosted you?
Yeah.
This man, this Negro ghosted you?
Yeah.
You?
And it's the same energy we had. It's like, oh, how dare you?
You're bald, my guy. You don't have hair.
Oh my gosh, not the bald. Yes, precisely.
So I was cackling at that part. But she goes into teacher mode and she's like, what I want to do here is I'm going to give each of you the opportunity to talk to me. Silence, crickets. I could hear myself breathing. And
it's like the teacher turns around and says, who threw that?
Yeah. Everyone's like trying not to make eye contact. They're like, oh.
If no one speaks up, none of you are getting recess.
I mean, she basically said that.
Exactly.
And she said, I didn't just ask that to ask that. I mean it. I was like, oh,
Ooh.
she really brought out the teacher voice. And still no one says anything. Jamie's looking around like,
Who could be saying this?
am I the one that told the teacher? I didn't tell the teacher.
Am
Did
I
I
the
tell the teacher?
drama?
Yeah. And so she's like, I'm really disappointed. But she's like, okay, I'm just gonna leave. I'll give you guys your time back. So she walks out. And Rodney, who had a great cocktail party moment, actually, that I didn't talk about. Michelle was like, I want you to see if you can figure out what a Granny Smith apple is. She's
Yes.
not letting this go. She has all the different apples, and he bites into like a Red Delicious, and he's like, that's the Granny Smith. And she's like, is it? And he bites into the Granny Smith, and he's like, this is definitely the Fuji. And then she gives him a piece of pizza. He's blindfolded. She gives him a piece of pizza, and he's like, why are you feeding me lasagna?
I loved it. That was like my moment. I was like, okay, you've sold me, Ronnie. I'm rooting for you.
I'm rooting for you, even though you weren't in my picks. I'm rooting for you. Yeah. I didn't love the blindfold, but she did ask, can I put the blindfold on you?
Yes. So it worked. It worked in that situation.
But so Rodney pipes up and he's like, is everyone talking without me? I didn't know anything about this. I didn't know that you guys knew each other. Who's talking about Joe to Michelle? And everyone's like, yeah, who was going to Michelle and asking? Like, someone needs to man up and say, like, who talked to her? And Jamie, the audacity of this man, is like, yeah, who's talking to Michelle? I want to know who's going to Michelle. Who would do that? It's like, the killer is in the room. It's you. Mm-hmm. It's you. You're the drama.
It's it's difficult because when this happened in Matt James' season, and Katie went and told Matt James about, like, you know, the stuff that was happening inside the house, where she didn't name names, but she said, like, you know, things are getting out of control, where they're saying stuff about Brittany being, you know, a sex worker, essentially. And they asked, like, who did this? I don't think she spoke up then, which, like, in that situation, I say that's the best thing to do, because one, it was actually happening. And two, she didn't name names, and it was something that I think very much needed to be said. But here, do you think he would have benefited from standing in his truth and saying, yeah, it was me? I wanted to find out for all of us. I wanted to get to the bottom of it. I did it for you guys.
Right. He wouldn't have benefited. The men were already ready to unionize against him. It definitely gave flashbacks to Katie's season with Carl, when he went and said to Katie, like, all of these men are questioning if you're here for the right reason. And then Aaron basically came out with the torch and was like, how dare you? So I don't think it would have ended well for Jamie if he had said, like, it was me. I was the one that stepped up to her and told her. But I did side-eye him being like, yeah, who could possibly talk to her? Like, he could have just been quiet.
Yeah, I think the additional stuff of him, like, playing it up when they were, like, you know, all talking around, like, in their little groups and stuff, that made me feel ill.
They kept showing clips of him talking to different men, and he was like, I can't believe anyone would do this. And someone else is there, like, he's like, that person just ruined her night. And he's like, I know, I haven't even gotten time with Michelle. And it was like, sir.
Because I'm like, what do you think is going to happen here? Either one, you end up being with her, you watch this entire season back with her, and she sees that you lied.
She's looking at you like, oh,
to, like, whatever, you don't end up with her, but still everyone watches the season back and sees that you lied. So, like,
I kept thinking about that last night. I was like, how uncomfortable must it be to be like I don't feel bad for him, but to be Jamie right now watching this episode and be like, yeah, like, everyone's in this group chat and they're like, Jamie, it was you? If they don't already know, which it looked like is going to come out next week, but we'll get to that. So Michelle doesn't get any answers. She's upset. She cancels the rest of the cocktail party. We go into the rose ceremony. The last rose goes to Peter of all of the drama of this week. And then the men sent home. PJ, it's really sad. Mm-hmm. I know we didn't love his mustache, but I was sad about it still.
No. Yeah, he was still a vibe. He was still the moment.
Pardeep. Moment of silence. Bow your heads. Thank you. We'll miss you, King. Daniel, We Hardly Knew You,
Yeah,
and
I don't even
Alec.
know.
I could not pick you out of a lineup. I'm sorry. But those are the men sent home. And then we got a preview for next week, and it was kind of juicy.
Yeah, I said on stories that I thought that was juicier than the like season overview one. Like I felt like there was actual drama, and because like from the season overview one, the only one that I saw was like a jacket being tossed in the pool or something like that, right? And so I
Right.
was like, is that what we have as like the main villain storyline? But between Peter being annoying and this Jamie thing, I'm like, why didn't they throw that in? So I'm like, unless that only happens like in these first few episodes, and that's why, and then like that's all the drama we get. That kind of makes me kind of uneasy because I'm like, oh, if these two storylines are like wrapped up quickly, like that means like, you know, possibly Peter going home next week and then like the Jamie thing coming out and then maybe he's sent home. Then it's like, what are there like villain storylines to look forward to? Um, I mean, I know people say that they like to watch this show for the love story, whatever, but that's not me. It's not me, babes. I'm here for the mess of it all. I want both. I want my cake and I want to eat it too.
Well, but I also look at it, and at some point we're going to have to, quote, fall in love with Clayton, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
producers have said, like, we met Clayton and immediately knew he had to be our bachelor if Michelle didn't pick him. So at some point, like we saw him a little bit this week, but not really, where I was like, why is this our bachelor? So
Yeah.
maybe we never know, but I would have to think at some point there's some kind of backstory,
Yeah, I
right?
think it looks like he gets a one-on-one next week. Guess that'll be the
All right.
time. That'll be the time. But I mean, just looking at the Instagram numbers and gains and stuff, it is abysmal right now. Like the people who should be like your Nates because he got like the first impression rose and like all this stuff. Like even Michelle, like I think since the premiere, like maybe gained like 10,000, 15, 20, like nothing. I was looking at Rodney from his little like Apples thing, and this man only has 1,800 followers.
1800?
Yeah, 1,800. And so I'm
That man should already
scared
be sponsored by Granny Smith. Okay, he should already have the Apple sponsorship on lock. People, don't let me down.
because I feel like it's the same like funny vibe of like a Connor Catman, like not necessarily, you know, like something that just like, oh, I love him, he's like super cute, and getting those same type of numbers. And so it makes me scared for again the vitality of the show. If you're losing ratings and stuff every week, no one's even following these people on social media, like there's no drama. Like what is there left?
I don't know. I don't know. But I am enjoying the season. So there might not be much show left, but I am enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'll be here next week. It's fine, but I'm hoping that we'll see more. This episode was good. Let's keep it going.
Yeah, I am definitely interested to see how this Jamie drama unfolds. Hopefully with him going home. And yeah, that's really all we have from our Bachelorette episode this week.
That's true. Same for me. Got nothing left.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for listening. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast listening app. You can follow us on Instagram at Content Culture Pod and on Twitter at Official CC Pod, where we live tweet the episodes every week. And we will see you next week, friends.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys. Bye.